Round of applause for Aroop. He came all the way from the US for this. Thank you for the support, Aroop. We have one question. Before you start your presentation, can you let us know, what is your thoughts on the US presidential campaign right now?
Very difficult question. But actually, if you had asked me this question about 6 weeks ago, I probably had an answer for you. Because if you remember, 6 weeks ago, it was very clear that a Republican candidate in the name of Donald Trump was pretty much assured to win the Republican nomination. And likewise, on the Democratic side, it was very clear right from day one that Hillary Clinton will end up being the nomination, right? But what is interesting is, in 6 weeks, as I'm seeing and understanding this whole dynamics, those things have completely changed. What we are now seeing is that there is a resurgence with two particular candidates on each side of the spectrum. Bernie Sanders has now really picked up momentum. He's now I think he's won 8 out of the 9 states that went through elections recently. And the crucial state of New York, which is basically what will cement whether he makes it or Hillary Clinton makes it. And on the other side, Ted Cruz has done the same thing. He's won Colorado, he's won Wyoming, he's won many other states as well. So this is interesting, Hasmi. I don't know who will end up being there. I know I'm not there, but I will certainly be there supporting one of the candidates to make sure that we get the right candidate on the system. So we'll see very soon. But I think New York is a very crucial state. Watch out. Whoever wins that state on either side will probably end up getting the nomination, is my prediction. Okay? Perfect. Well, firstly, I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you as well. Warm because I've been struggling with the heat in Malaysia. I didn't realize it was so hot, which is why I'm partly excited to be here, and partly I'm not excited to be here. Excited because it's always lovely to meet people here. But the reason I'm not excited is because my team, and Hasbi in particular, forced me to wear this suit. When I love batik, which I think is one of the best things Malaysia has created. Okay? So there is a possibility in the second half you might see me in a different attire. So it's me. So guys, once again, thank you very much for coming. And like I said, you heard some very, very interesting elements of what Manoj basically shared with us. And I think we are seeing tremendous, what I call as disruption, collapse, and transformation happening throughout the world. It's not here just in Malaysia. It's happening in the US. It's happening in other parts of the world, in Europe, in Latin America, etc. What we took for granted, for example, as countries that are going to do very well, industries that are going to do extremely well, I think everything is changing. In fact, when we asked CEOs all over the world, what is their number one external challenge? They have completely changed. It's no longer competition. It's all about pace of change. If you ask them internal challenges, it's adaptability, the ability to adapt to this change. And they're struggling with that. So what is happening because of this pace of change, the ability for companies to respond to that change is not very easy. And the bigger you get, the more challenges you face. And that is why a lot of companies in different parts of the world are struggling to grow, survive, and thrive. And that's why I believe either you've already experienced a disruptive time or you will get into a disruption mode very quickly. And that's why it's very important for everybody here to decide whether you want to be a disruptor or be disrupted. And that's why I think understanding the markets of the future, understanding the geographies of the future is very vital. And the reason I want to specifically talk about the United States today is because I believe that's a country that has shown tremendous ability of change. They've been able to manage change very well. They've been able to adapt to change very well. Right from the last, if you look at 60 years, they were once upon a time a country that focused on what I call industrial revolution. When jobs went outside the country, they became an internet service-based economy and did extremely well with that. Today, what do you see? It's all about digital revolution. And they're able to adapt to that. So the country continues to survive, continues to thrive, which is why globally, you can see they still remain the number one country in the world, both on economic development, but more importantly on innovation. And my talk today is a lot about innovation. and what's happening in the US, and why I believe companies in Malaysia must actively participate in the US market. What I'm very encouraged, as I've been here for a number of years, as I meet people in the private sector, as I meet people in the government-linked corporations, and as I meet people, especially in the government here, both at federal and state level, there is certainly a desire. There's certainly a need. In fact, just this month ago, I had an opportunity to spend a few days in the state of Terengganu. And I was quite impressed with what they are planning to achieve, what vision they have set up. And I challenged them. I put a lot of pressure on them to say, are you really, really committed to doing that? And you can see, as a state, they're very, very committed to doing it. And I'm very confident with the kind of infrastructure, the systems that they're putting in, there are great opportunities. And like that, there are a few more states in this country that are doing it as well. I want to congratulate companies like Khazana, for example, companies like MDEC, companies like MIDA, who've taken bold steps of being in the US. Because US is not a short-term journey, it's a long-term journey. And for Malaysia to survive and thrive, given the current economic crisis that you are facing, because who would have estimated, guys, that you would see oil prices dip from $120 a barrel to $40 or $35, whatever it is today. And countries in this part of the world and in other parts of the world that are oil dependent are now going to have tremendous disruption because those revenues are not there. So the countries have to all evolve. And I think that is why an opportunity is there. And that's why I think countries like Malaysia, which have first-class IT infrastructure, backbone is extremely good, can participate in the world's largest economy. So let me put it this way bluntly. I don't think you have a choice. As a country, as companies, as leaders, for you to survive and thrive, I think the participation in the US market is important. And I believe the first step for everybody here to do is to actually set yourself up, establish some presence there. Come to Silicon Valley, where I'm based. Put an office there, put 2 people, and start that journey. It won't happen overnight, but you will see yourself successful over the long term because that country provides that opportunity. So with that, let me get straight into my presentation. I'll tell you a little bit about what's happening in the US and what changes we are seeing and how you need to prepare yourself, not for today, but for the next 5 years, 10 years, so you're a big part of that success. Okay? So what we did as a company is focused a lot on bringing all of this together. We had hours and hours of work that our team did, over 1,200 hours of work. We focused on a variety of different areas. I'll call it coast-to-coast coverage. So just like we have West Coast, East Coast, we looked at economic trends. We looked at energy trends. We looked at urbanization. We looked at all the mega trends that Manoj referred to. We looked at all the different social trends that are happening in that part of the world as well. Because we all know the future will look very different for us. The companies will be very different. The kinds of products and services that will be consumed will be very different. So my goal is to touch on some of these topics. It's a very extensive piece of research we have done. If anyone here is interested, please give me your card directly, and I'll be happy to provide you insights and share with you some of the work that we've already done in this space. So let me get into some key elements of what we have covered in this study. The first thing is we are seeing hyper-convergence happening in the US. Hyper-convergence. Technologies, social trends, urbanization is hitting every part of the US economy today and will hit it over the years to come. Now, what does that mean? US will be a land of quantification. Everything will be quantified. Every data point will be captured and covered. Again, I'll keep referring to what Manoj said. Big data will be a huge part of everything we do. So we can do predictive analysis. We'll know when we fall sick. We know when our cars need maintenance. We know when our equipment will need maintenance. All these things will become a vital part of the US economy in the future. You'll see businesses will be extremely quantified. You will see our bodies will be quantified. We'll be carrying all kinds of wearable devices, continuously responding to central databases, to our doctors. We'll be communicating all the time. And likewise, every customer will be completely quantified. So that right when you walk into a retail outlet, into a bank, you will be recognized by the teller, by everybody in the system. So they know exactly who you are, they know exactly what your preferences are, so they can serve you the way you need to be served. This is where you're going to see a tremendous change. So it is clearly a land of quantification happening both at the business to consumer level as well as business to business level. So tremendous opportunity. So if you are a firm in big data analytics, if you are a firm that runs in capturing this kind of data, there is incredible opportunity for you to participate in this particular market. I think the other big thing you're going to see is a network of communities. Yes, of course, we've all heard of Facebooks, which is a much larger community. But I think there's a lot more happening down to the micro level. There are communities being formed at the city level. And within the city, a smaller neighborhood level communities are being formed. Today, you have a company called Nextdoor. It's an app that basically connects people in a smaller community. So you know exactly who lives in that community, what their needs are. Do you need a teacher for your kids' education? Do you want a plumber to come and fix your faucet? You can now do it down to that micro level. This could mean disruption for companies like Facebook. This could be disruption for some of the other companies as well. So there is again tremendous opportunity to participate in that ecosystem. Cities will be transformed in the process because the needs that are, with big mega infrastructure may not exist in the future. So microstructures will start to be created, especially in a country like US, where the ability to connect is extremely good. So you're going to see that happening. You'll see more communities, like I said, being formed at the micro level. And finally, you'll see families being more networked in the future. So again, tremendous opportunity to bring in systems where you can get these micro connections. I think what you're also going to see is more smarter workplaces, more human-centric workplaces, a delicate balance between work and life. I think the new generation wants to see it that way. The older generation, people like me, work was everything. Work was home, work was worship, everything was done through work. Not anymore. People want balances in life today, and I think it is the right thing to do. So you're going to see work areas change quite dramatically in the future. The mind-body-soul connection is going to be very vital in the workplace, in the business environment, as well as in families together. So you will see people looking at holistic places to work in, where people have time to relax, at the same time they're able to deliver products and services. More collaboration will occur. And the reason that will happen is because you will see technology can bring people together. Flexible workplaces, flexibility of when you work, because not everyone is totally engaged from morning 9 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the evening. People have peak times of performance. Future will have all of those kinds of things. So creating that infrastructure of collaboration will be very vital. So you'll see a lot of that happening in the US in the future. Competition is going to change completely. And you'll see some of the points I will say in a few minutes from now. The level of competition will change, the intensity of competition change, and more importantly, the companies will have to co-work together to deal with competition. So competitors will have to come together to serve a solution for our customers. Okay? That is very important. So no longer will it be just individual companies competing. Even the traditional competitors will form cooperation to compete with the given environment. You'll see a lot of that happening in the US. One of the trends that is driving that change of hyperconvergence is urbanization. Manoj touched on that. This is an incredible, incredible mega trend that is completely disrupting and transforming every industry out there. And why is it? Because more and more people are moving from smaller cities into larger cities. The younger people in particular, the Gen Y, the Gen Zs, the millennials, all these people prefer to live in big cities. So just in US alone, for example, as you can see, we are going to see a big mega city like New York that covers not just New York, New Jersey, parts of Connecticut, that whole mega region will be covered. We're going to have at least 5 more mega regions in that country all across the US, and 2 big mega corridors, one on the East Coast and one on the West Coast between San Francisco and Los Angeles. 86.7%, more than 85% of the population of the US will be living in these mega cities, mega regions, and mega corridors. Huge number. Imagine the infrastructure that is required. Imagine the services that they will need. The shared economy system will completely transform, change. That's why companies like Uber and Airbnb, and the list goes on and on, are all participating in that market. The dynamics of purchase will change. City will become a customer, because to provide these services, it's not an individual who can buy. Cities will have to make that decision. So the city of San Francisco, city of Palo Alto now becomes a decision maker. And in order to provide this solution, no one company can provide that. A conglomerate of companies have to work together to provide that solution. So companies like Hitachi, for example, are working with multiple other companies, many of them with whom they compete, are now offering these solutions. So you have to start thinking about operating in a very different way. Now what that does is, even for a company from Malaysia, you have an opportunity, because even these big companies need certain innovative products and solutions from this country or from other parts of the world to provide that end solution to the customer. So again, tremendous opportunities for you to participate in that market. The expectation is that by 2025, the top 100 cities in the US will pretty much be the economic engines and drivers. So that's where you want to concentrate. That's why I recommended be in Silicon Valley. It's a center of innovation. Connect there. You can not only participate in that market, but bring that innovation to Malaysia and to other parts of the world as well. The city that I believe that has taken tremendous leap when it comes to being smart, being super connected, is the city of San Francisco. They have pretty much beaten every other city. And as you can see, we look at 8 different parameters that form a smart city, like smart buildings, smart transportation, smart mobility, smart hospitals, healthcare as we call it. They're able to do that very effectively. It's one of the most connected cities. Wi-Fi is free in every part of the city of San Francisco. Waste is completely recycled in the city of San Francisco. Okay? There are more electric charging stations in the city of San Francisco compared to any other city. And that is where you see the transformation change even happening to a city like San Francisco, which is considered as one of the oldest cities in the US. So this is possible. This can be done. And as these cities transform, and trust me, they are leading the pack, but there are many other cities in that country that require tremendous support in I would say, almost every aspect, from infrastructure to products and solutions, right to clients' doorsteps. Everything is changing, guys. And that's why I think this is the right time for companies in Malaysia to participate in that economy for the long term. Obviously, the demographics are changing in the US. We now know today that the Hispanic population is a big part of the US. The shifts in the population base is also making a huge difference in the US. I am now the old generation. I don't like to call myself, but that's what I am. I'm a much smaller piece of the US economy. My generation is a much smaller piece. It's clearly, as you can see, the millennials today account for almost 30% of the population, and as time progresses, they will be a huge part. Their needs, their demands, their instant gratification is very different. So to be able to understand this social trend is important as you build products and solutions, because you're not building these products and solutions for my generation. You're building products and solutions for the generation called millennials and Gen Z that will eventually become the ones that will consume these products and services. Yeah? So you have to understand these social trends so that when you begin to put your products there in that marketplace, you're able to address the needs of these individuals in the marketplace. What is very interestingly happening in the US, obviously, is what I call as the economic divide, the money divide. The rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. If you look at over the last 10 years, there's been a tremendous income disparity, number one. Number two, what has also happened is the average household income in the US has actually gone down, not up. More and more people are getting poorer, and more people are getting richer. So what is happening? The middle class, the middle bulge as they call it, is actually shrinking in the US. A lot of people from the middle class are becoming instant millionaires thanks to technology, that they are able to start companies, innovate, companies go IPO, companies get acquired, they make a lot of wealth, and they are then moving up into the rich part of the segment. And likewise, there are many who are falling behind, and they're falling really behind, okay? And their levels are extremely, extremely scary. That's why when you go to a number of states in the US, like Louisiana, for example, or Michigan, like cities like Detroit, you can see that income disparity. So in the US, over the next 10 to 15 years, you will see a smaller part of what I call as the middle bulge, which is the middle class. You're going to see a lot of that disparity happening. So you have to create products and services for these two extremes. That trend is very different in other parts of the world. If you look at a country like India, it's the middle class that's growing. Okay, and that's why it becomes a very attractive proposition for people to participate in that market. People want to go to India because they see the middle class growing, therefore more consumption of products and services. That's not the case in the US. One thing that is scary, and I think Manoj touched on that topic, and that is about automation. Automation is going to have a major, major impact in the US. Almost 50% of the current jobs that are in the US are likely to disappear or shrink. If not disappear, shrink. You can see some of the jobs today, especially in the auto sector, are definitely winding down. If you look at a plant like Tesla, I think everybody knows this company Tesla, which is in the same city where I live, the city of Fremont in the US. It's amazing. You go to their plant, you can hardly see any human interface or human interaction. It's a completely automated plant. Completely automated plant, where you had 100, 200, 300 people working. Once upon a time in the US, every fifth job was with the automotive industry. Imagine that is changing and being disrupted with a company that is showing great levels of success. With their Tesla 3 car now being launched, with over 300,000 people having already pre-signed it. If more and more of that happens, less and less jobs will be there in that industry. That's getting disrupted. Likewise, travel agents. I don't think I've used a travel agent in the last 5 years. I don't see the need. I'm more efficient than them, I get a better deal than them, and I can get it done myself in less than 30 seconds than what I used to spend in the past. That's how it has become easy. And likewise, call center jobs are also disappearing. There's more virtual call centers now than the physical call center. So over the next 10, 15 years, as you look at this, you're going to see a lot of different types of functions disappear. And that's why education will be very important. And you'll see, I don't have a slide here, but I can tell you, the less educated people that you have in the system, the lower their chance of being successful. So innovation, technology is going to be where the future will be for the US. And trust me, those are the kinds of initiatives and programs the governments are putting in so that people go more and more in that direction. In the future, it is quite possible that even the healthcare industry will be completely disrupted, and I'll talk about that when I take a little deeper dive into the healthcare industry. This is very quickly to give you some action on what's happening at the Supreme Court level. While it is not necessarily a big deal in many other countries, but in the US, this is a very important deal because the government policies on a variety of different issues are resolved by this Supreme Court. So depending on who sits in that chair, one can get a better idea of how the government will handle these kinds of decisions in the future. So it's obviously a very important thing that happens. Today it leans more in favor of Republicans who were nominated as judges, but that is going to change very soon because one of the people in the system who's unfortunately passed away is Justice Scalia. So that's going to be nominated by the current sitting president, President Obama. So therefore, chances are that that will be a Democratic hire. But as you go in the future, depending on who takes the next presidency or next administration, that might change because some of these judges will retire. So it's a good thing to keep a track and why it is relevant in the healthcare, in the US environment. Talk a little bit about connectivity. Manoj talked about 50 billion devices being connected globally. That is very true, and you can see a big part of that connection happening in the US as well. You're going to see 5G networks happening there because one thing I can tell you, every state government the federal government has recognized that without technology, they cannot evolve and manage their economy. So they are putting incredible infrastructure in place so that there is the ability to consume data, connections, virtual workforce becomes very easy. And even Frost & Sullivan as a company today is very virtual. We have people operating from more than 45 different cities all over the United States, even though we have 4 or 5 major hubs there, including Silicon Valley and San Antonio, Texas. But we have people now all over the country that work together in a very collaborative way, and technology is able to do that. So you're going to see a lot of technology shifts happening there, connectivity. Sensor prices, as you probably know, have dropped dramatically. So today, every factory floor environment is being completely sensorized. Completely sensorized. Whether you're in the automotive industry, whether you're in the aerospace defense industry, every piece of equipment on that floor has been sensorized today. Of course, it poses a different challenge. Cybersecurity is a big challenge. Most defense companies in that part of the world are facing huge cybersecurity threats. I spoke to a CEO of a major defense company, and he mentioned that in a day, they get over 1 million hits from different parts of the world trying to break into their system. And you know, who would have known that Panama paper leaks will happen, right? So these kinds of things can happen to any of these companies. So there's tremendous opportunity for companies that can offer cybersecurity type of solutions in the US as well. A quick look at the economic trends. Obviously, US is a big economy. It is the #1 economy. China is certainly catching up, moving quite rapidly. But I still believe US economy will be a very thriving, robust economy over time. When you look at it from a PPP perspective, it is slightly smaller compared to China. I think China will take it over. But for me, the real metric of any economy is GDP per capita. And if you look at the GDP per capita, US will still be the highest compared to any other part of the world. The China numbers will go up, but it will still be less than half of what the US offers. Yeah? And big challenges with countries like China is now a lot of unemployment, but more importantly, the increasing growth in population, especially now that they have lifted that ban on one-child policy. That's going to change the dynamics of that country quite substantially. Yeah? So this is why I still believe that the US in the foreseeable future is a tremendous economy, and participation in this is very important. When you look at it from a bit of capital markets, you're going to see some bit of turbulence as we go into the next year, the years after that. That typically happens when a new administration comes in. But at the same time, you will see there will be a continuous growth in capital markets over the next 10 to 15 years. I'm going to take a little deeper dive on the health, wellness, which I think is a very important part of the US economy. As I mentioned earlier, the biggest challenge the US has today is on healthcare. More than 30% of the GDP is spent on healthcare. And the reason is because more and more people, unfortunately I'm part of that bucket, are getting obese. Portion sizes are so huge in the US, and as you know, when good food is in front of you, it's very tempting. You can't say no to it. And I'm a perfect guilty party to it. So more and more people, but it's the younger people that are also getting very obese. And that's creating tremendous pressure on the healthcare system. Chronic diseases of diabetes, heart, are now a big part of that economy today. So tremendous need, tremendous opportunity, but that's happening. Wearables is going to be a big part of that economy. Almost everybody will be connected. Okay? You will see in the US today, a vast majority of the people wear some kind of a device to monitor their basic metrics, whether it's heart rates, pulse rates, and other physical activities that they do. And all of this information eventually is going directly to their healthcare provider. So you're going to see a lot of that happening. So healthcare is going to be an area of tremendous opportunity. So if you are involved in it, I would strongly recommend you should be part of it. 50% of the adults, like I said, will have one or the other chronic disease. So it's very important to understand that. So if you're in the pharma business, wearable business, there is tremendous opportunity for that. And like I said, a big part of the dollars are spent just to handle these healthcare issues in that country. One thing that's happening is that the whole healthcare system is being decentralized. It's being completely fragmented. So it's no longer centralized, it's getting decentralized. Cities are now getting a lot of healthcare systems being putting the systems into their communities. Number one. Number two, what you're also seeing is that from big hospitals, pharmacies are now able to dispense a lot of the medical care and healthcare. A lot of home-based healthcare is being provided. My own son, who had a major injury during a football program, got bulk of his treatment actually at home. Barring the actual surgery for which he went to the hospital, every other preventive care that happened at home. So you're seeing that whole ecosystem completely change. So people going back to hospitals are going to reduce. So these big mega hospital structures are completely going to be transformed in the US. Okay? So this is something you have to be aware. A lot of miniaturization, connections, like I said, variables is where there is a big opportunity. And partly also because there is aging population, there is a need for old age homes to take care of these older people because they're becoming a big part of that entire population base. And finally, like I said, you will see tremendous smartness, right from wearable devices to smart pills and many other things that will be brought into the system so that people can live better, live longer. And as you know, the average age of people is continuously increasing in that part of the world. Health, wellness, well-being, mind, body, soul is going to be a big part of that healthcare system. So if you have any products, solutions, applications that meet that requirement, I would say healthcare is where you want to be participating in. And finally, like I said, you will see healthcare costs, which are plague the economy today, over time will drop because you will see more and more people focused on preventive healthcare maintenance than what has happened so far. I'm moving a little fast. I've got a timer that says I need to move fast. That's why I'm going to keep going with that. Urbanization, like I said, is a big part of it. So the whole mobility industry is going to completely be transformed. At the same time, it will be extremely connected. Every car will be super connected in the US. Infrastructure is being laid. As we move from current cars to autonomous cars, that connection will only increase. We expect, obviously, insurance costs to go down because the cost of and the weight of the car will go down. And I don't know how many of you know that today. A big part of why we get such low fuel economy is because our cars have been made a tank. They're almost operating like a tank that is used in the battlefield with airbags and other things. Imagine if the number of accidents reduce, you don't need that big a car. You don't need that heavy a car. That means cars could go, even on gas, not just 25, 30 miles, but probably 100, 200 miles a gallon. So we're going to see a lot of that changes, but the car will be super connected with the infrastructure so that you can actually sit and be connected with the rest of the world as well. On the infrastructure side, as you know, the road infrastructure is a very big part of why the US is well connected, but rail infrastructure will be equally important. High-speed rail networks will be a very critical part. Obviously, it's not easy to put this infrastructure in place because of number of issues, right from budgets to environmental issues. But I think US will have no choice but to do that, given the big trend of urbanization. And that's why projects like connecting San Francisco and Los Angeles with a high-speed network, Hyperloop systems, is being discussed. And eventually, I do believe that these projects will go through. As far as energy, I think energy will also go through complete transformation. There will be a lot more decentralization. So the utilities, for example, in the US, the Pacific Gas and Electric and companies like that, I think are prime for disruption. And what you're going to see is with decentralization, with products from Teslas, you're going to see a lot of people no longer just consumers of electricity, but they might be generators of electricity and putting it back on grids. You're going to see a lot of that stuff happening in a country like US, because their ability to adapt and change is very quick. So you'll see a more decentralized, you'll see nuclear coming back into the system because the amount of energy requirements of the future is going to be extremely high. So what I recommend, therefore, is have a look at all of these different opportunities in the US. Like I said, from automation to the economy, to technology, to urbanization, the change in the Hispanic versus non-Hispanic population. I think all these things I believe, put the US in a very exciting mode. I recommend very strongly for each and every one of you to strongly make an investment, be part of that economy, because that is where I believe transformations can happen, and you can transform it back here. And the way to do it is, a system that we have created, which we use with most of our clients, is through a workshop engagement. Let's interact together. We can share with you insights of what those opportunities are. We can sit down, we can streamline, we'll funnel it, we'll pick the ones that make the most sense, and give you directions of how you can potentially participate in what I believe is a very, very huge market. It's a challenging market, but it's a long-term play market as well. So with that, once again, thank you very much. I'm waiting for all of you at the San Francisco airport. So please come. I'm happy to host all of you there. Thank you very much.